you've got yourself something funky.
Yeah, no worries. What's up? What's up, streamers? I'm here with Mark.
Hey, what's up?
Welcome to the jungle. It's a Sunday solar stream, or a nice black screen, as you can see.
It is nice for now.
Yeah, who was that?
Here we go. But yeah, a couple clouds going by. What can you do? Beautiful moon views last night. Gorgeous.
I agree.
Well, I should say this morning.
It looked really pretty.
Yeah,
I was watching it before I actually fell asleep with the phone on my face.
Yeah, about 4 a.m. it was really crystal clear. So I think we might try to do a couple morning streams before this cycle jumps over to the waxing.
Well, you have fun with that.
Yeah. This damn dedication is a pain in the butt. There's the sun. It's coming back.
Good.
So what's up, Mark? How you been? What are you doing? What's on your agenda? I know you got a radio show tonight. What's going on with that?
I do. I'm going to be doing Commander Cobra's show on KGRA. You're going to have me on to talk about everything we're doing.
Commander Cobra.
And then some. Then Monday night, I'm going to be with Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, doing the same thing, talking about what we're doing, talking about astroimaginglive.com, our one-stop shop for all your imaging needs. Oh, man, it sounds like a freaking commercial. And not intentional. Yes, not intentional. Oh, hey, Pluto! You know? But the bottom line is that other than that, I got to do I guess I'm going to be booked into Richard Hoagland's show in the next week or two or however long it takes.
Nice.
Yeah, and I got to thank Amanda Kern for that. She actually got that exposure for me, which is for all of us, actually, because I basically decided that, you know, on these shows, it's no longer I, it's we, you know, so we're going to, you know, just kind of spread the word and do what we can.
Yeah,
you know?
I do what I can, too. I spread the word far and wide, and my grandmother says, thank you, she will be watching.
Hey, that's funny.
Hey, Mark, you just have way more contacts than I do, as I said. I mean, we just started this a year ago. You and Bill are the guys that have contacts everywhere, it seems. And we're just these lowly imagers kind of coming into the fold.
No, not really. I mean, I'm very familiar with certain people for certain reasons. You're familiar with certain people for certain reasons. You also have great ideas that I haven't thought of at times. You know, I think that you're you know, quite unique. And I would never have decided to throw it all in basically with P&K and with Bill if I didn't think there was something unique about it. And there's other people doing exactly what we're doing.
Oh, shucks.
But, you know, hey, too bad, man. You know, suck it up.
Yep.
You know, but the bottom line is that I think that, you know, imaging requires attendance, and you want to have people watching. And you've got you're probably up to almost 20,000 subscribers by now.
Yeah, we're a little over.
Yeah, and I've got, you know,
263.
or whatever, 266.
But don't let that
I just
deter
started
you.
though.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't, because I just started.
Because what I'm saying is, like, with us, I mean, when me and Paul first decided to combine and do it on one, we said that we're doing it, you know, regardless of who's watching. But because he had his own thing going, and you know, he was getting people to watch, but not like, you know, not like these huge numbers that we have now.
Yeah.
And we decided to take it on to YouTube and whatnot, and we were saying, you know, whether it's one person watching or whether it's a million people watching, we were going to do the same thing, the same way we've always done it.
Yeah.
You know, and it just so happens that 20,000 people so far decided they liked that way and decided to jump on board and subscribe to the channel because they liked the way that we did things. So I don't see us changing up anytime soon. If you know
I like
what I mean.
that. And now that you and I and Bill have now own and operate astroimaginglive.com, this will give people a chance to basically see any one of the streams that's active or all three that are active, and then pop into them, and then as soon as you hit the escape key, you basically come right back to the browser, to the original window that you started in.
And for people that don't know what we're talking about, we started a website called Astra Imaging Live, which will have all three of us, with myself and Mark and Bill, New York Skywatcher, all three channels there. So when if we're all three streaming live, you can literally go to that site and then watch all three simultaneously.
Right,
you know, and then you can enlarge which ones you
want.
want. You can listen to which feeds you want, but you can still see all three of them.
Or you can listen with 3 years. If you have 3 years, you know, they can listen independently. They can listen to all three at the same time. So you get to turn 2 down to listen to one, or just pop into the other, you know, pop into it, maximize it, and now you get the full screen for that feed. Yep. And then if you want to see what the other feed's doing, you hit the escape key, and bam, you're back at the website, and you pick another feed, drop it into it, pop out. And literally you can go back and forth and participate in the chats in each individual location.
And the beauty is that it has its own chat.
Yeah,
so literally, you really don't have to worry about that much trolling on that one, because of the fact that in order for them to troll, they literally have to come to the site and actually want to be there. It's not like just browsing YouTube, you know, and finding a thing just to troll. You know, it's a specialized chat, and everybody can be on there. So you can literally chat with everybody that's watching all three streams as well.
That's right.
So, says the dog.
Woof woof.
Oh my. But yeah, so that's what we're attempting. Yeah, and there are some other people doing the same thing we are. You know, and I'd actually like to catch them to see what they're doing, and so I have to actually find that. But yeah, so we kind of got our own little thing going.
They contacted me yesterday. It would really be cool if we had like 50 or 60 of us all over the world just watching the skies constantly. Because, you know, we'll either see a black project or we'll see something really cool that's out of this world, so to speak.
And by the looks of the screen, it looks like the sun is really bright right now. Paul said the clouds are coming in off the ocean. There's really nothing you can do about it. You know, they just keep forming and coming in.
Yeah.
So, hey, what can you do?
Well, look, it was a good idea, and hopefully we'll let it keep going, you know, and then if it comes back, yay. Oh, Sherry, thank you for putting up our site. She put up our site in the astroimaginglive.com.
Thanks, Sherry. Mark, you have a solar scope, right?
I do.
Any plans on piggybacking that thing on the big boy and doing some solar someday?
Yep, I actually 3D printed a mount for it already. That's what's nice about having one of these nice utilitarian 3D printers. You can just design a piece of equipment and print it out. And
which reminds me, you want to do me a big favor? I'll even pay you if I have to.
You want an Erastines.
Do you have the geological information for Clavius?
I think Clavius is below 60 degrees south, isn't it?
You're asking the wrong person.
Come on, you know all about Clavius. You want to see the moon base? It's not there.
No, I want the 3D printout.
I know that. Of course I know that.
But I wonder. I was thinking about that last night when we were looking. I was like, I wonder if Mark has the information for this, the 3D print it.
You know, when you came up, I wanted to have Pythagoras waiting for you, but Pythagoras was actually, unfortunately, below the.
Right, because you're in between the 60s, right?
Yeah, you got to be below 60 north and above 60 south. So because that's what the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter digital terrain maps are set for.
Right.
And I couldn't get anything like that. I wanted Goclenius crater too. It was just undoable because it was actually on a weird angle. I could get it, but it was already deprojected in an elliptical, and it would look like an elliptical printout. You know, so you'd have to kind of hold it sideways and say, "See, look, it's elliptical."
Is Clavius? Is it in that area?
I'll tell you in a second.
I thought it was 60 degrees.
I'll tell you in a sec. You know, its position is, and I'm right there now. It's actually 58.4 south. It might be just within the limit. You know what? While you're right here, I'm gonna actually I'll start up a session. I'll go see if I can get Clavius here.
Beautiful.
Yeah, because Clavius is a nice crater.
Yeah. How long does it take you to print one of those craters?
The craters typically print in around 3 or 4 hours because I tend to make them have a thicker base.
Yeah.
Because these are things that will sell. You know, people want them, buy them, and you know they want to buy a crater. They'd say, well, which crater they want. We print it out. We give it to them. You know, we make it for them. You know.
Hey, if you're ever looking at raising funds for the website or whatever, you can always 3D print out craters for people.
That's true. That's true. You got a bunch of them that I gave you.
Yeah, I got I got the 2 here that I got, and I ran away with your Google satellite.
Well, yeah, but that was because they gave it to you. You didn't steal it.
Yeah. Well, it would have been a lot cooler if you would have said I stole it, but okay.
Oh. Well, I didn't want to say it on the stream, okay? But when you're done with the stream, the feds are waiting for you outside. But that's okay.
That's a normal stream day.
A normal day, yes. So, yeah, and so I will actually look for Clavius crater here on the website. I've talked to those guys that actually run the facility that does the geo coordinate system and gets the geo coordinates, and they're actually nice guys, and I've kind of been helping them troubleshoot the system because they changed over to a new system. It's called Mappaplanet, but this is Mappaplanet 2. It's the successor, and the successor had a few bumps. And
well, they're mapping Mars too, aren't they?
Yeah, I got Mars, I got the Moon, I got Ceres, Vesta, you got all the asteroids that are major asteroids.
Speaking of Mars, how many people are now going absolutely apeshit because of this thing Secure Team put out about the Google facility on Mars? And
I think that's hilarious.
It's like, dude, I give credit to him. They even says that it was a joke, April Fool's joke, but then he all of a sudden takes that deep turn into the conspiracy. You know, well, if it's there, why? You know,
he couldn't resist.
Who has this much time in Google to Photoshop this and all the shadows line up and there's car tracks around it and all? I'm like, oh boy, here we go.
It was just very clear that he took a Google Earth snap and trimmed it out in Photoshop and layered it in with Photoshop and then just did a little bit of orange overlay to try and mask it at the edges, and that's all he did.
And he did that with the correct sun view too, to make sure the sun lined up on where it was for up on Mars. But
that's not hard to do. All you have to do is rotate the image you're planting on Mars to the area where the sun's going the right way.
Exactly. Yep. There.
So, I mean that doesn't even matter. I didn't even consider worrying about that because that's something I would do right away. Boom. But that's what you do. So I mean, you gotta think like these guys to catch these guys, so you won't be fooled by them. That's all. Not a bad bit. Let me tell you.
It's all about the views.
It's all about the what?
It's all about the views.
Yes.
Yeah. But hey, more power to them.
Well, that's the problem. They are getting more power.
Yeah.
And we don't want them to get more power. We want them to
I wouldn't say more power. I would say more influence, maybe. Creating a lot more conspiracy theorists. A lot more people not willing to do their own homework on things and letting a YouTube channel do it for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
But hey, you can't fault the guy.
Well, sure I can.
When you're making mega ad bucks, and then all of a sudden Adpocalypse happens on YouTube, and then you start a Patreon that, jumps you up over, $10,000 a month. You got to put something out.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that's what you're gonna do.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start putting UFOs in our stuff and start a Patreon so we can continue our UFO investigations, so the government can't silence us.
Why don't you tell people what a Patreon is? Because I don't think they know.
I don't think you know what a Patreon is, Mark.
Want me to tell you what a Patreon is? Want me to tell them?
Everybody knows what a Patreon is. I mean, Patreon's a pretty well-used, platform these days. And basically, if you want to support a creator, any creator, it doesn't matter if it's on YouTube or writers or artists or musicians, if they start a Patreon page, you can actually support them yourself by basically giving them money on a subscription basis. It's like a monthly thing, so you can do like $1 a month or whatever, or $10 a month, or $100 a month, or whatever you feel that that artist or creator is worth to you. So what they do is they start these, and then basically the person gets paid to do what they do and what people love and are paying them to do. So
I heard it described as a donation subscription.
Yeah, pretty
really
much.
It's kind of a weird way to put it, but it's like a donation subscription where you agree to donate on a regular basis. So
yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what it is. You're supporting the creator on a monthly, basis. So say if I liked what you're doing with the Sky Tour live stream, and I'm like, man, I want him to continue this, I can go on to Patreon and like bump my credit card in and say, I'm giving him $10 a month. And I'll just bank your card $10 a month, and then whoever else, and then what you do is you would get 95% of that revenue. It would come to you, so you can continue to create and do what you're doing, basically.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yep. And we have thought about it. It's just we need to hash out a couple things, because we do put. Especially Paul. Paul puts a shit ton of time in. And it's like I got to the point where it starts affecting our work schedules, as when we might think about going the Patreon route.
Yeah.
But, until then, we'll see. We'll see. But as of right now, we'll always keep this free, on YouTube. So.
Yeah, once you start something free, you don't want to charge a subscription down the line unless something massively different happens and you're forced to.
Right.
But
and me and Paul were talking about it up in New York. We were like, man, how great would it be to be able to do what you love, as a job? And that's pretty much what Patreon allows, creators and people to do, is actually do what they love for a job, as long as other people are supporting, them. But, hey.
But let me tell you what doing what you love for your job can cost you. In 2001, I quit my full-time job as a computer consultant, and I started FX Models full-time. It was part-time from 1994. And after a few warnings from my bosses in my real job, quote-unquote, I decided that I wasn't gonna play the game anymore, and I engineered my layoff. So now I was home without a job, and now I was staring at the wall going, holy cow. The mortgage is only 15 days away. How am I going to pay this mortgage?
Welcome to Hookers at the Point, starring Mark D'Antonio, turning tricks in Connecticut.
No, I didn't even consider it, but that's only because I didn't think I had the mentality for it. But anyway, no, but
you didn't have the back for it.
The back for listening to you. Oh. God, you turn the stream from a family affair into just a plain affair.
What can I say? It's that day after the Moon stream hangover.
Oh, they're funny. That's funny.
Anyway, continue. You were poor. You weren't hooking, and then
correct. Yeah, so I ended up doing the typical, cold calling people, trying to get them to, have me do some special effects work for them or whatever. And then I got, I managed to, sit down and figure out, okay, I made a big mistake quitting my job. And then the phone rang, and that was from General Dynamics saying, we saw an article on you in the paper about you doing submarine models. Do you want to do some work for us? I was like, yeah. And they gave me a 12-foot model to do. And after that, the rest was history. And then they kept me going for many years. And that's when I got the planet job, about 3 or 4 years ago, where we do these big illuminated planets for buildings all over the country and for museums around the world. So that whole thing sort of came together. But look at how long it took. I got laid off in 2001. It's 2017. Okay? And the planet thing, which is putting my kids through college, didn't happen until 2012. All right? That didn't start till...
You were a bum for a while.
I was a bum. Well, I was just scraping. I was scraping along for many years.
Hey,
but that's what happens when you
gotta do.
Well, that's what happens when you want to do your thing. There's time you have to put into it.
But once again, we have to reiterate this, and I found it mostly to be true. If you're doing something you love, you'll never work another day in your life.
Well, that's very true. I can't imagine working for someone else.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to do. It's hard. A lot of people can't find jobs that they love when they are working for somebody else. Some can. There have been stories of people that just love their jobs, love what they do.
Yeah.
Great. But they are a very, very small percentage.
Right, and they're very, very mentally incapacitated. No, I'm not just kidding.
And Genghis has asked if we commented on the spot on the right side of the screen. No, we have not. It's a nice little sunspot. It's just sitting over there, kind of hovering. Not as good as the one as last weekend, but it's still a sunspot nonetheless.
Yeah, and it has like there's an interesting thing with the sun. When you see it like this, we're only seeing the photosphere right now, which is just the visible light spectrum of the sun. I don't see granulation, so I don't think Paul's using the H-alpha filter. He's got it set on the visual side, or mostly visual side. When you look at the sunspot there, do you notice how the limb of the sun, when it's fully clear, the center looks brighter than the edges? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's actually a real effect. That's not an effect of the camera. That's actually what it really looks like, and that's actually a phenomenon called limb darkening, where the edge of the sun actually is a little bit darker, and it has to do with the direction the photons are going, photons being emitted from the sun. It has to do with the direction they're going, because the ones that are facing you tend to come towards you, and the ones that are off to the side and away from you tend to go away from you, but there is a small percentage that does come towards you. But that smaller percentage amounts to a darkening of the limb all the way around. Now, here's a question for the chat. I don't know if anyone knows this, or if they're without looking it up. Does anyone know how long it takes for a photon, once generated in the center of the sun, to leave the sun and come to the Earth? How long does it take that photon to get out of the sun, to what we see here on the screen, the photosphere?
And we're talking about a photon of light.
Yep, a photon of light. From the time it's generated inside the sun, in the core of the sun, and the sun is almost about 864,000 miles across.
Was that an oxymoron, a photon of light? Is there any other kind of photon?
No, but there's other kinds of oxymorons, so we can go down that path too. But no, you were fine with that. I didn't have any problem with you saying that, because that probably is helpful. Someone might say, "What's a photon again?" Oh yeah, it's not a laundry detergent.
Oh, I know. I've been playing with photons the last week, and I can't wait.
Yes, you have. So. Graphene photons.
Hey, simmer down now, Mark.
Yeah,
I'm not ready to release my findings yet. But you will be helping me on that, so I understand the scientific aspect of it.
Yeah.
After
so does
I get
anybody
my
know?
Clavius crater.
Okay, Jennifer says 3 days.
I'm going to say about 23 minutes.
Okay. Mike says 1,000,000 years plus. Pro Tool says 2,000 years. These are all good guesses.
You got to figure light. I mean, you're looking at 8 minutes, right, from anything we see on the sun to the Earth.
Yep. Yep.
So I'm gonna say around 20 minutes from the middle of the sun. Well, that's
Okay.
Are we assuming that the proton's working its way directly out of the center out towards us?
Well, photons generally will be radiated outward.
Okay.
But to be fair, it's not a straight path out, okay? Because photons will get reabsorbed by something else and then be spontaneously emitted by another reaction, all the way out. So, I mean, saying it's going to take longer than the time it takes light to go 864,000 miles, or half that actually.
Okay, I'm going to switch mine. I'm going to switch mine to 15 minutes.
Okay.
Right around that.
All right. And someone, Dave says 5 seconds. Derek Hunt says 8 minutes. And actually, Derek, that's the time it takes for the light once it leaves the sun to get here. And we're 8 light minutes from the sun. So if it went away right now, we wouldn't know for 8 minutes. We'd be all happy in the stream. And oh no, it's gone.
And then it would get cold really fast.
I do a class that talks about what would happen if the sun went out. And it's a really neat class, and I have to consult notes for that because it's pretty detailed, and it goes through all the things that would happen on the planet between now and 7 to 10 days from now. And it's just amazing to see what would happen in that amount of time without the energy from the sun hitting us every
tell the people the answer before they lose their crap.
All right. The answer is, and Mike got close, it takes over 1 million years for a single photon of light to make it out of the core of the sun. Why is that? You'd think that's crazy. No, it's not, and here's why. The energy density in the center of the sun is pretty high. You got a lot of reactions going on. You got a lot of fusion processes going on. You also have a lot of other types of reactions going on where a photon that was emitted from one reaction gets absorbed by an atom from another reaction, sending that atom to a higher energy state for some period of time. And then that atom re-emits that photon. And now the photon goes on its merry way, only to get reabsorbed by another atom somewhere along the way, and then re-emit itself a little bit later. And that goes on and on. And of course, because of all the atoms and all the density of the atoms in the sun,
does this happen
over 1 million years?
Does this happen anywhere else in nature besides in the core of stars?
Well, I mean, fusion, no. Fusion's an interesting process, okay? Our sun, the answer is no, okay? But if we look at our sun and we look at other stars, bigger stars, stars like Arcturus and Antares and giants like Rigel, okay? If we look at the normal stars like our sun, those are stars that are on what's called the main sequence. They're just happy as a clam. They're fusing hydrogen into helium, okay? And that is their normal process. So that star, when Ejnar Hertzsprung and Henry Norris Russell actually mapped out the brightnesses of the stars according to their color, let's say, they found that many of the stars actually fit along this little narrow snaking band that went from the upper left of the chart down to the lower right in decreasing temperature and brightness. And that snaking band was called the main sequence. And those are stars that are normal, like the sun, making helium out of hydrogen and doing that normal fusion process. Okay? And in nature, there's only two ways that stars do fusion. All right? Only two. One is called the proton-proton chain, and the other is called the carbon-nitrogen-oxygen cycle, the CNO cycle. And the CNO cycle is reserved for larger stars because small stars like the sun can't make all these other intermediate elements and basically will end up with a lot of what's called helium ash in their cores, and that's what happens. So we look at the star, and every time I look at the sun like this, and I have to say that I look at the sun and I say, it looks like you could just plant a spaceship on there and walk. But that's because we're so far away from it. If we were up close to it, that sharp edge delineation you're seeing wouldn't be there. We wouldn't see that because that sharp edge spreads out into, hundreds of miles or more of graded increase in density of energy, and it's all plasma. So you wouldn't really know once you got there. You actually probably wouldn't know that you're entering the sun, so to speak. You would actually not be able to see it. It's like a cloud. Clouds look so solid. But when you go into them in a plane, all of a sudden you notice it's sort of getting white outside, and then all of a sudden you're in the cloud. It's the same kind of thing, same illusion. But that said, there's only two fusion processes in nature, and that's that CNO cycle and the proton-proton chain. Now, what's the proton-proton chain? Well, that's a direct chain where hydrogen goes into helium, okay? And it's not a direct line. You've got deuterium in there and so forth. There's a whole bunch of steps. But it's the simplest cycle that makes helium ash out of hydrogen atoms. And the CNO cycle, it makes these other elements but it does so by it's called a catalytic reaction. It needs oxygen and nitrogen for the carbon to do its fusing, and it needs carbon and
do
oxygen.
me a favor and define the difference between, for everybody that's listening, define the difference between fusion and fission.
Oh, I can do that very easily because I do this. I did this actually in a television program because I was talking about the dangers of fission versus the safeties of fusion. And it's in my book too, so it's always fresh in my mind. Think about fission as a reaction that is in a deep valley, okay? And this is just to show you the dangers and the energy requirements. Fission's in a deep valley, running. To stop that reaction, you have to move the reactor all the way up the side of the valley and get it out of the valley. In other words, you have to put an awful lot of energy into it to stop it, okay? Right. So, if something fails, if your donkey breaks down as you're walking it out of the valley, guess what? You could have a runaway reaction. Or if the cliff wall collapses when you're climbing the valley wall, then you could have a runaway reaction. In the case of Fukushima, if a tsunami comes in and kills your diesel power generators that are supposed to run the scramming rods, which go down into the fuel pellets to stop the reaction, then you can have a runaway reaction. And in fact, that's what happened. Okay, so fission requires energy to stop it. Fusion, on the other hand, is exactly the opposite. And when you have a fusion reaction, it's like being on top of a big mountain, and it's perched at the very tippity top on a very pointy part of the mountain. The slightest imbalance, and it'll go toppling off the mountain. Okay, so you have to maintain the fusion reaction all the time, or it will shut down, and that's the worst thing that can happen in fusion. It'll just shut off, and that's why fusion has been so notoriously hard to crack, because it takes a lot of energy to get it to happen. And then once you get that energy output from the reaction, you have to put that back into the reaction to continue it and still get a net energy out of it. That's what the sun does. That's what all stars do. So looking at the stars and trying to recreate them has not been so easy for us. Fission was actually something that doesn't happen inside of stars. Okay, it's a reaction that we discovered because of what's called differentiation, the settling of very heavy radioactive materials after the Earth cooled, and these materials got together, and the core of our Earth is actually got a lot of radiative materials in there, which is why it's very hot still. And we also have a lot of heat formation left over. You might say 4.5 billion years, and it's still hot down there.
You know what? This is bringing up a whole topic here that I actually wanted to discuss with you last time, and actually I'm going to do it now anyway. Let's talk radiation.
Well, wait, first of all, did I answer the question adequately for you on
yes, absolutely.
fission versus fusion? Okay.
Yep. So I have a visual picture in my mind now, the difference between fission and fusion.
Yes, and that was my point. Now, one thing I want to make sure just to tell you before you go on the radiation thing. In a fusion reaction, the byproducts are water and possibly tritium. Tritium is actually used to make the fusion reaction go. If the fusion reaction shuts down, and say the reactor is blown up by a bomb, the worst thing that can happen is tritium might rain out of the sky as a powder and land on your skin. It's radioactive, but guess what? You can't get it. It won't, as a powder, you could rub it on your skin and it will not penetrate into your body. And all of you listening to this have tritium in your system already. No, not from radiation that occurred before, but from natural processes. And the nice thing is, it's not cumulative, all right? It's not cumulative radiation. So it can be, lost over time. It will leave your body over time. It gets, peed out, so to speak, right? So that's something. Now, in fission, the reactants are actually very dangerous, and the results of fission are that you get a highly radioactive set of fuel rods left over that have to be disposed of, and it's highly dangerous. Okay, you also get
stick them in a mountain.
Plutonium. You get plutonium, right? I mean, that's something that's really dangerous. Obviously, a gram of plutonium can kill thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people. A single gram airborne. So we're talking a lot of...
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to bring up with the radiation because, number one, of course, you have the moon hoaxers with the Van Allen belts. And as much as I try to explain how much the Van Allen belts are not that big of a deal because of the speed that we're going through them.
Yeah.
The bigger thing that I see...
More the location. Yeah. More the location we go through them in.
And
at the poles.
The bigger one that I see is Fukushima. Yeah. Now... as much as I try to explain to people that even on the West Coast they're in no danger of Fukushima because of the radiation, you will see elevated levels, but not, it's because of the type of radiation. There are different types of radioactive materials. Not everybody's using, uranium, and it depends what isotope of uranium you're using too. So, why? Maybe you can put this in better terms than I can. Why are we really not overly worried about, say, the radiation from either A, Van Allen belts, or B, Fukushima?
Well, let's back up one second and just to give you a little summary. There are basically three types of radiation, right? There's alpha, beta, and gamma. And the alpha radiation is it can be stopped by a piece of cardboard. It can be stopped by your hand. It can be stopped by a piece of notebook paper. Beta radiation is the next level, and beta radiation is something that can penetrate through air, and it can go through anything something you hold up like paper. But a thin sheet of aluminum would stop it, and a piece of a metal would actually stop it. Okay. Mm. Gamma radiation, though, is the one that's really the dangerous one because these can get through most things, and they are stopped. It's stopped by lead, okay, but it is something that's very dangerous anyway. And so there's those three types of radiation: alpha, beta, and gamma. Now, these particular radiations are not. You don't want to see any of them, okay? But beta and gamma you want to stay away from, and you want to stay away from the radiation that's called ionizing radiation. That stuff is actually the kind of thing that will give you, you'll be dead in a few hours from exposure, okay? And you have the millirem exposures. You have a certain amount of millirems, which is a unit, like microsieverts now they call it, or sieverts. It's a unit of radiation. You don't want to be exposed to too much of that, obviously. When you go to get an X-ray, that's a fraction, of a millisievert each time, and or just a few millisieverts. So, you can put up with X number of millisieverts per year, and I don't know the actual number because I'm not a radiation specialist per se. But I do think that, so those are the three kinds, okay? Now, the thing is, the reason that the ionizing radiation is bad is because, that radiation will ionize the materials that it's hitting, and that changes them, okay? And it actually puts a charge on these atoms, and that is what we can't deal with very well. But they use these, in controlled purposes to help us. I mean, there's medical treatments that use radiation, of course, you know that. Mm-hmm. And it's actually very, very small stuff. You have the nuclear seeds, okay, that can get implanted to, kill the area around.
But you also have radiation that has a half-life of like 6 to 8 seconds.
That's correct.
So, it's just a lot of people. I mean, there are a lot of fearmongers out there.
There are. Now,
like the big thing that they were worrying about with Fukushima, I think, was thorium.
Yeah.
But the kind of thorium that was used, it was like literally like nothing. I think it has like it was like an 18-month half-life or something like that. I forget.
Well, but but there was also some iodine that was worrisome.
Yeah.
Now overall, with all the levels of radiation that are near the Fukushima site, I mean, there's areas around Fukushima that are going to be barren for the rest of known existence. 50,000 years. And that's because of the half-life of whatever radiations are there. Now, unfortunately, when we play around with radiation like this, just talking about it makes me feel like we're getting irradiated. You know what I mean? But the sun is a huge radiator. All right, it radiates a lot of radiation to us. Okay, and it radiates X-rays. It radiates low level,
ultraviolet radiation.
Yeah, you get ultraviolet. Yeah, infrared. Ultraviolet radiation is mostly stopped by the atmosphere. So imagine how you might look on the beach after an hour now, and compare it to if the atmosphere wasn't protecting you from the ultraviolet.
Crab people.
Oh man, you're dead people. Yeah. So it'd be tough. It'd be tough. I know that
now. When it comes to say the Van Allen belts, explain this how. People say we can't go past the Van Allen belts. It's just way too. Explain how this was done. I know Amy did it over on her channel on Vintage Space.
Sure.
Explained the whole thing with the Van Allen belts. But just for anybody that's listening right now that doesn't know.
Okay, well, let's
what's
first
up
of
with
all,
the Van Allen belts?
Let's define the Van Allen belts. Around the Earth, we have a magnetic field. That magnetic field is capable of snaring and entrapping charged particles from the sun. Now imagine it's done that for billions of years. The Van Allen belt has these charged particles trapped in it from the sun. That's mostly where these come from. And so people say, oh, well, we've got these unbelievable, this unbelievable barrier. Now there's an inner belt and there's an outer belt to the Van Allen belt. However, the magnetic field originates at our poles, North and South Pole, obviously. Well, the Van Allen belts are almost non-existent at the poles. And so when spacecraft leave the Earth's atmosphere and go into orbit, they're below the inner radiation belt, which is the lowest one. But then when they want to leave and go to the moon, and they do that orbital insertion to go to the moon, where they actually do that thrust, they actually go out through the South or the North Pole. And it's like, well, duh. I mean, there's hardly any mystery to that. Of course that's what it's going to do, and of course that is what'll happen. I just think it's important to understand that we've done it many times.
Yep.
Because here, think about this. If they were so dangerous for us, don't you think they would be dangerous for the probes we sent to Mars that are actually there, and the probes we sent when New Horizons went to Pluto? What about that?
And ladies and gentlemen, that is what you call science.
Do you science? Do you science?
Science for the win.
Honestly, though, let's take that one step further. So when you look at the fact that we actually have successful space probes that got out there, when you ask someone who says we can't go through the Van Allen radiation belt, when you ask them how these space probes did, they say, oh, well they have protective shielding.
Right.
And then you shake your head and you screw up your eyes and you go, okay, and we didn't do that for us too? Hello? And then
not only that, but didn't the Apollo capsules have a certain area of the capsule where they can actually turn if a solar flare happened?
Yes, their ablative heat shield was going to be used as a shield for them.
Right. So they could actually turn the capsule if, say, we got a solar flare or something to take the most of the impact from that, from a solar flare.
I believe it was the heat shield that had that in there. I'm not so sure. What is a solar flare? A solar flare is a mass ejection of plasma from the sun, highly charged particles. Okay. Dangerous radiation. This is something that could kill astronauts. So you have to have a way of dissipating it. You have to have a way of making sure it doesn't harm the occupants of a spacecraft. So you do have to have shielding.
Well, that's
now think about it.
Hold on. Let's look at this. What we're having said in the chat right now, and I'll let you respond to that. We have somebody saying that scientific, I'm guessing that would mean scientist, now say pole, I'm guessing he's saying poles, don't exist no more. And your response to that would be?
In what planet? Because we certainly do have poles. We have a north and a south pole, believe it or not. And I'm not trying to make fun of his comment. I mean, he probably is trying to make a valid point that he read somewhere. But it's very important to understand that, just because you read it doesn't mean it's true. Every time I say
your back, there's a whole bunch of channels, these Nibiru channels actually supposedly have physicists on talking about how Nibiru is real and it's in our solar system. If this person literally is a real physicist, I would have to question their credentials.
Well, that's the thing, okay? And we can jump on that for 1 second, but let me just finish with Vesden here. Okay, he says the poles don't exist no more. Well, I don't know what story he read that he misinterpreted, and it might be what it was. And I'm not trying to slight him in any way, because he's probably trying to pass along a valid piece of info, and that's fine. But I want to mention and tell him that it's okay. We do have poles. We know this because just take out a compass. Take out your iPhone, go to compass mode, and watch what it does. All right? It moves to the North Pole. Actually, it doesn't move right to the North Pole, does it? Because true north and magnetic north are two different things. And that has to do with the geology under our feet and so forth. When I put the observatory in, I had to actually get magnetic north, and then I had to compensate for true north. Okay, so my telescope's lined right up on the exact North Pole. And so why is it lined up? So that I can actually steer it to anything I want to. I can go anywhere in the sky, and the stuff I look at is right there in the view somewhere. Okay? No machine is perfect. So, you know, over a course of, say, 70 degrees as the telescope's swinging, maybe there's a little backlash or a little gear slop somewhere along the way in the drive. So the object I'm looking for may not end up in the dead center of the field. But that's okay. It's in the field.
Right.
You know? And that's because I lined up to true north, not magnetic north. And so when people put up a telescope and they put it in an observatory, they have to consider all these things. And I spent actually 2 days outside just with a hole dug for the pier. I haven't even put the concrete in to put the pier on top of, the steel pier. And I spent time with paint cans painting true north lines on the ground so I'd know where they go. Once I actually started to get to the point where I now had to build the base and put the hole in it for the pier to go through. So that would cover up everything. So I actually had to extend these lines out fairly far in the grass. And I actually ended up getting so close that I only had to make very slight changes once I had the thing all screwed down. Very, very good about that. Very happy about that, because that was not that was one of my big concerns. Because ground shifts. Anyway, so that's off the topic a little bit. Let's go back to Van Allen belts then, because the Van Allen belts are there because of our magnetic field. In fact, they symbolize the fact that we have a magnetic field. Let me ask you, does Venus have a Van Allen belt, and does Mars have a Van Allen belt?
I would think so. Well, then again, they have magnetic fields, yeah.
See? Mars does not have a magnetic field, so there's no Van Allen belt, and Venus doesn't really have a magnetic field, so it doesn't have a Van Allen belt.
Wait, with all
either.
that activity going on, Venus doesn't have a magnetic field?
No.
Weird.
Well, look it up. Again, that's the other thing I say. If you doubt anything I say, please look it up. I don't want to be the only one that says these things. And I don't want to be the be-all, end-all. I think that it's true that at some point, a lot of the planets had a magnetic field. So Venus doesn't have a magnetosphere at all. All right? It basically, it has a what's called an induced magnetic field.
But a magnetic field nonetheless.
Yeah, but not caused by the planet. It's induced by the presence of the planet. It's hard to explain.
Can you answer station recreations questions in the chat?
Yeah, where are we? They actually found a third Van Allen belt. That wasn't a question. Is that the question?
No, this one was like, he says, I would like an answer. Why did they have to put a Geiger counter on Orion?
Oh, well, I think anyone would do that, because you're going to send a manned mission out. So you might as well put a Geiger counter on there to find out what you're dealing with for radiation.
There's a follow-up. They said not only did they put a Geiger counter, but they refused to release the readings of the Geiger counter.
Well, if they put a Geiger counter, I can accept that. But refusing to release the readings, it sounds like we're heading down the conspiracy trail again. And I would just say, well, who was asking for the readings? You know, the National Enquirer. If they say no to the National Enquirer, I mean, does anybody question that?
It's always a conspiracy.
Exactly. It's always a conspiracy. And, you know, I understand. You know, our country's done some bad things. You know, in the 50s, when we thought nuclear power was going to save us and nuclear weapons were the bomb, so to speak, you know, we actually, as a human race, as an American citizenry, high levels in the government decided to actually dust a low-income, minority, suburban neighborhood outside St. Louis with radioactive material. And they did this to test how nuclear fallout would affect the population. Babies died, people got cancers, okay? It was a travesty. You think dropping the bomb was the worst thing we ever did? I think dusting a low-income neighborhood was the worst freaking thing we ever did. And by the way, the rumor started way back then that airplanes came through at night and misted the area. And that's not actually how it happened. What actually happened was they drove military vehicles through these neighborhoods with big fans aiming out the back and open vats of this radioactive dust. And they just let the radioactive dust be blown out by the truck, by the fans in the trucks. So it was actually done by vehicle. But the myth persisted that airplanes did it, and this became, guess what? The chemtrail theory.
Mm-hmm.
And then people show the ballast tank systems that are used to test airliners before they put people in them and said, see, these are the chemical vats. No, those are the ballast tanks used to shift the weight dynamically of a flying aircraft to make sure that it doesn't destabilize it. Okay, that's how these things are flown. Do you think they put people in a real plane? Okay, 300 volunteers, please, to go up in this brand new airplane that may not fly. Okay, everybody walk to the back. Everybody walk to the front. Okay, everybody to the left side. Everybody to the right side. You know, that kind of thing. And that's not the kind of thing that we would do, you know?
Hey, as I said, I mean, you can literally have anything and somebody has a conspiracy about it.
I agree with that.
You know?
I totally agree.
Well, I think what we're going to do is, it looks like the clouds won. You know, it's just, they keep on coming in. They're stacking up out there. We're not getting any sun whatsoever. So I think we're just going to end this live stream. You know, we tried.
Yeah.
If it happens to clear a little bit later, we might try again a little bit later before it sets. But everybody's got to remember that Game of Thrones does premiere tonight at 9 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, and one of my sons is actually going to a friend's house for a Game of Thrones viewing party.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a great show.
I just started watching it, and I was like, oh, I confused it with Hunger Games.
It's kind of like a mix between the Hunger Games and any Tolkien and, you know, but it's definitely, when you actually look at it as a whole series, you realize that they were planting the seeds in episode 1 to what stuff that they're doing now, which is just baffles the mind. You
well,
know?
I've just watched the second episode of season 1, and I have all of them to watch. I mean, I can stream everything online. No, that's okay. I mean, I do play Assassin's Creed. Come on, hey.
Hey, but I'm just saying, we're just warning you. If you want to know why a lot of people were depressed last year around a certain time, you're going to know why.
All right.
But if you're only on season 1, yeah, you're going to feel like a lot of kids did when I was in school when that first book came out. You're going to know why. There was a lot of depressed kids walking around. But, yeah, so definitely catch up on season 1. And then once you catch up with all the seasons, then you can start on this year and be caught up with us, and you can chit-chat with me and Bill about it.
Yeah, because right now I don't think I can.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Station Recreation is definitely a chemtrailer. Right? He's actually.
Oh, yeah.
Operation Solar Shield is Harvard's admission there, spraying our skies. You know what? You know, it's like the flat earthers. You know, you try and go at these, and you try and give them logic, and they turn your logic into you're part of the problem.
Yeah, we're government agents, Mark.
I don't know that he will do that. I'm just saying that's what I have experienced with people.
Oh, but you know, you've done. I mean, you've heard the same thing I have. Oh, you guys must work for NASA. Oh, you're government agents. You're shills for the government, just because we tend to believe science rather than
Yeah.
But hey, they're going to be all over the place. What can you
do?
do?
Hey, I just want to say, if it's clear tonight, I'll be streaming. Are you going to be streaming tonight?
Nope. Game of Thrones at 9, and then the moon doesn't come up till 2 a.m. So.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
We'll
so
see.
we're gonna take the night off and hopefully maybe do a couple morning streams before we hit the moon and start waxing again. So.
Okay. Well, from 7 to 9 tonight, I'm doing Commander Cobra's show on KGRA, and then tomorrow night I'm doing Jimmy Church's Fade to Black from 10 to midnight or so. And then I'm supposed to be on Richard Hoagland's show sometime soon, I was told. So I don't know the times yet, but our friend Amanda got me that one. I think I might have said something. But so, if you're not doing anything tonight, around 9 o'clock, I'm going to be done with the Cobra show. So by 9:30 or so, I expect to start streaming if it's clear.
And
tonight's gonna be what we call potluck. We're actually gonna look at everything there is under the stars. We're not gonna focus on a particular item. We do from time to time. We did stars one night, and we talked about the evolution of stars. Last night we talked about star birth and star death. We tried to look at supernova remnants, but unfortunately there's only one to view right now, and it's really, really faint. So it's hard to see. But tonight we're going to do everything. We're going to look at clusters, double stars, galaxies, nebulae of all kinds. And then we're going to,
I'm pretty sure one of our mods can post a link to Mark's channel in the chat for us, if you could. And, so we're pretty much we're going to end it here.
All right.
Everybody jump on and check out Mark tonight when he goes streaming. It looks like it's going to be a pretty good night. Everything seems clear down this way. I'm not sure about your way, Mark.
Yeah, no, it's supposed to be a fairly clear night. I mean, it might have a few high cirrus clouds, but I had a huge bank of clouds come through last night, and I was thinking, oh, no, it's the end of the stream. And before I knew it, they were gone. Right. I was like, all right, yeah. However, you got to make sure you keep a hairdryer in the observatory, because I had to make sure that I could get the dew off the corrector plate on the telescope, because I did have it covered with dew at a certain point of the night when the temperature reached the dew point. And that, of course, was a problem.
And look at that, right when I was about to wrap up, guess what came out?
The moon?
No, the sun.
Oh, okay. I was being a dummy.
Mm-hmm. No.
Sorry, man. That's me.
Look, the station now said that we admitted it.
Yes, exactly.
We're government agents.
Okay, here, I got something to tell.
We don't believe in Harvard either.
Actually, station, you know what?
Just you were right, Mark. Go ahead.
I am a government plant, and it's my job to make sure that you believe what we want you to believe. Yes. How's that work? That sound good?
My job is to make him sound credible.
That's right. Thanks, Derek, for putting my channel up there. That's right. Hey, also remember, you can also catch me and Paul and Keith and Bill, New York Skywatcher, by heading to, I was waiting for you to say it, Keith, I'll say it, astroimaginglive.com.
Oh, do you want me to say something?
No, that's all right. You were already thinking the stream's done, but it's not, because Paul's now zooming in on that sunspot.
Okay, so I'm going to answer one more thing from a station here, because he seems to be losing his hair quite frequently. So he says, well, they bash conspiracy theories, yet they are talking with Richard Hoagland.
Nah, Richard Hogan. That's a different guy.
Oh, Hogan.
He says Hogan, see?
Who's Hogan?
That's what he typed.
Either way, I think we know what he meant.
Station, I'm only kidding with you. You know that. The truth is, conspiracy theories are born within a shred of truth about an object, about an item. So when I talked about the dusting of the St. Louis neighborhood, that was indeed something we did. But from that, other conspiracies were born out of it. And so you have to be able to weed them out. Weed out the things that don't make sense. And the things that don't make sense are things like chemtrails. I actually did a big article. I didn't put it on for Huffington Post. I didn't do it on Huffington Post. I do have a Huffington Post presence, actually, but I didn't write this, and I will. When we talk about chemtrails, you have to consider all of the industries that are in place that would have to be part of this conspiracy for chemtrails to even be possible. Puts it into the realm of the absurd. And it's sort of the same way when you try and talking to the flat Earth people. Like I said, when you give them a real good one that they can't answer, like, how did we get GPS? then they say they're on balloons.
Yeah, they dismiss science then.
Right, and they dismiss science. And then, flat Earth people, when you say, well, how about satellites? You watch them go over, and you see these views from space. Oh, well, those are computer generated. Really? Were they computer generated during the Gemini days? How did they fake the Ed White, outside the capsule doing the spacewalk? Well, they still had Hollywood studios. See, they just like have an answer for everything, and it borders on the absurd. In the same way with chemtrails, the airline companies, the airline designers, the safety commissions, the people that make the fuel tanks for aircraft, the people that make the fuel for aircraft, everybody in the whole chain of human flight would have to be in on it. And for some conspiracy guys, they go, yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of pilots,
right?
Not even, boat captains, and just the scope of the conspiracy would have to be absolutely massive. Not to mention, almost 2 million troops surrounding our flat plate Earth, guarding against anybody going onto this Antarctic wall surrounding the planet. I mean, come on.
Right. Oh, yeah, and it would require no less than 10,000 ships to guard that, by the way. We did the math. Now, if you look, he also says, and weapons of mass destruction wasn't absurd. Actually, it wasn't. Okay? Because what you didn't find out, or what you may know but ignore, is the fact that those weapons of mass destruction had already been used. The Kurds in Iraq were killed by nerve agents that Saddam had unleashed on them. Hundreds of thousands, if not 1 million or more people, were killed by Saddam using weapons of mass destruction. Okay, so let's be fair. Okay, you want to call it what it is. Saddam used chemical weapons. He used weapons of mass destruction on his own people up in the northern provinces. So you tell me, were we right to go after weapons of mass destruction? You're darn right we were. In fact, we were told by every intelligence agency around the world that worked with us that they were there. And then when we couldn't find them because Uday and Qusay, his sons, were spiriting them out into Syria through trailer trucks, and it was seen and captured on film. They saw them doing this. Okay, they weren't there. They had time because, of course, of all these stalling tactics used by our political parties and the people fighting with each other over this. So they didn't get to see these things getting trucked out. They saw them, and everybody said, "Oh, they're already left. They're trucked out." Even the locals were saying that. All that stuff left. They left here. Yeah, this was full. This was full of tanks, and now it's empty. That is, tanks full of nerve gas. Yeah, now they're all trucked out. They're gone. Well, where'd they go? Oh, well, they got trucked out to Syria. And they had all this documented. But by that time, you see, the damage was done. I was no fan of Bush. Trust me. But the bottom line is that he was blamed for something that he should never have been blamed for. I mean, they tried to put that at his feet, and that was all a political thing. It had nothing to do with real responsibility. And that's the thing that always bothered me, was why we do that as a human race. We do that to each other. Look, just put the best man or woman in charge, all right, and let it go with that, okay?
Oh, boy. Now he's just talking about yellow cake uranium. I think he's just trying to be contrary for the sake of being contrary. Yeah, well, I mean, the yellow cake was another thing, okay? And if you really want to know about it. Nice try, Mark. E for effort. Well, no, I've got it covered. I mean, I'm not speaking out of my go for it. Netherworld here. If you really want to talk about what happened with the yellow cake, you want to understand that, why don't you talk to Hillary Clinton? Okay? Because Hillary Clinton actually had a lot to do with the yellow cake that was missing. Follow the money, and you will find your yellow cake. That's as much as I'll go to. Yummy. Yeah, now see, Station knows he lost, so now he actually throws in, well, okay, JFK, what about JFK? Yeah, JFK, yeah, if it's not one thing, it's another, If recreation, and I don't mean this as a barb by any mean, but if he lives in the United States, or she, I could almost say they voted for Trump, because it seems like conspiracies and Trump go hand in hand. It just seems like it. I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, of course there's a lot of conspiracy theories that aren't Trump, but it seems like it goes Trump, conspiracy theories, flat earthers. They're all lumped into the same obnoxious, you know,
I said,
want my voice heard by any means possible. You know,
I said I would vote for an empty orange juice can over Trump or Clinton.
You did. Oh, he's not an empty orange juice can.
No. I said I would have voted for an empty orange juice can over Trump or Clinton.
Both.
I didn't want her because
candidates.
they're both. Yeah, it was terrible. I mean, look, I voted for Democrats for a lot of times. I voted for Republicans a lot of times. And the bottom line is, I did it because it was the right person. Well, there was no right person here.
That's what I always say. I always say vote for the person, not the party.
Right. The hell with the party. You know what? My father and mother were heavy-duty, staunch Republican people in town. They ran the Republican town committees, Republican this, Republican that, to the point where I got sick of hearing it. Well, my father once sent me down to Washington as a Republican intern for a Republican senator.
Nice.
I came back, and I had to speak to the entire town committee. Okay, there was like 40, 50 people in the room. And I got up behind the microphone at the podium. And it did that obligatory thing where you tap it and go, "Ooh," you know. And then my father, all proud, he stood up and he said, "So tell us, what was your experience in Washington? How did you enjoy it? Tell us what you learned." And I said, well, I was a little nervous because I knew what I was going to say.
I learned propaganda.
Well, I learned how to be angry and berate a Washington reporter who, to protect his sources, would not give up the fact that his source was a criminal. You know, I learned that people lie in Congress routinely in order to get their way. Doesn't matter who you are. And I learned that politics was probably the worst thing in the world to get into. And then all that was running through my head. And when he asked me, when he said, "So tell us what you learned in Washington," I said one sentence, and he didn't talk to me for a week. I said, "I learned that I never, ever want to be a politician, ever."
Yeah.
and he just, his eyes got big, and everybody in the room was like, I was like, okay, is this thing on?
Bye-bye.
Is this thing on? Boom, boom, boom. Oh, boy. I'll leave now.
Right.
And I went back and sat down just like that. I was in my little suit and tie. Oh, my God.
Ah, Jesus.
It was a horrible experience. I couldn't stand it. I mean, the highlight of my time down there was sneaking out of Georgetown University, where we were staying, where they put us, and sneaking into the pool to go swimming after midnight, when no one was around and the lights were all off. I mean, that was the fun we had.
Oh, by the way, John says in chat that we better be right with God. Time is running out.
Okay. Fair enough.
That's my boy.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know, time's been running out, though, for like centuries. I mean,
time's been running out since it began.
You know what? Exactly so. Actually, I think we were told that you know, there's somebody coming back to save the world. I think every major crisis that happens, and you always hear the repent. You know, the end is coming.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the end is coming. It's like, you know, I got tired of hearing it. You know, because I'm sorry, but you know,
that's why. My friend Dave, or Daz the cameraman, he started this group about you know, Voices of Reason, and he is on this big crusade to stop what he calls the fear porn.
Is that Vortex?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I'm in there, I think.
And that's his main goal is just to stop these channels from creating so much. Like, there's people that actually have killed themselves, you know, thinking that the world was going to end, and a lot of them are related to YouTube channels.
Yeah.
You know, that are just pushing this constant, you know, destruction. You know, it's like, and then more and more I'm looking at them like, how can any of these people be happy when every day it's the world's going to end? There's a big giant thing. Like, how do you live happily if you're in constant fear of something destroying your entire way of life? I don't get it. What
I like even more is when these same people say the world's coming to an end, you know, and then you go up to them and say, well, hey, can I have your car? And they're like, no. It's like, well, why? What are you going to need it for? You know, obviously
empty your bank account and give me all that if you think it's going to
Can you just give me all that green stuff in your wallet? Because I don't think you'll need it, right? I mean, where you're going, you don't need it, right? I mean, how about your account?
Station, the world is going to end, obviously. But it ain't going to end anytime soon. It's been here long before us. It'll be here long after us.
Actually, I can tell that he probably isn't ever in any of the nighttime streams, because
yeah,
he would have heard me say a million times as I talk about the evolution of the stars and so forth in our star, how the end to the sun is going to occur.
Yeah, it's going to eat the planets around it.
Yeah, well, yeah, when it runs out of hydrogen in about 4.5 to 5 billion years, it's going to... Yeah.
I think we need to just realize that the only thing that's going to end life on this earth is us. If we keep being stupid and stop messing with everything, with natural progression, and it just, you talk. I mean, everybody gets on about say Monsanto and their foods. Well, you don't hear the other side of the story, is where Monsanto has actually done really well in making foods grow where they couldn't otherwise grow.
Yeah,
because of their bioengineering.
We're allowed to do some bioengineering. It's our planet. We can do that if we want to, as long as we're not endangering other lives, and as long as we're not letting the almighty dollar dictate, who lives and who dies. And that, unfortunately,
that's a fine line.
It is a fine line, and it always happens anyway. And by the way, I just have to tell you, the imagery that we have been seeing by the sun is definitely hydrogen alpha imagery. He actually took and turned the little handle on his. There's a little handle on the telescope for this, and he has to now just reduce the exposure, or you do, to see the prominences.
No, that's coming direct from him. I just got a slight on it.
Okay, because he's trying to get to the prominences, so he has to knock down the exposure on the camera a little bit.
Yeah, and actually, last time we did a solar stream, we had a beautiful arc coming off the one side.
You had a loop, huh? Nice.
Yeah.
Now, do you know why they're arced? You know why they're arc-shaped? Does anybody in the chat know that?
Magnet.
Oh, come on. You just had to say it. Yeah, obviously.
I said magnet. I didn't say magnetic.
Yeah, I know. Prominences follow the magnetic field of the sun. And every 11 years, the sun rotates like once every 28 days on its axis or so. And when it does that over time, the magnetic field lines, because of the plasma in the sun, the magnetic field is sort of drawn out. So, in a typical, in a real world, you would think, well, the magnetic field lines, if we just take one line, it goes from the North Pole, we want to go right down the side of the planet and then right to the South Pole, in a perfect circle right around, okay, straight down. That's not what happens. Because it's rotating, what happens is it begins to drag out by the equator, which is rotating faster than the poles. And when it rotates like that, you can imagine that as that rotation continues over the years, those lines end up crossing each other and end up getting knotted up. When that happens, every now and then we see a little protrusion off the sun where the magnetic field lines bust out, and that little knot of magnetic field lines, which also carry charged particles, burst out of the side of the sun. When it does that, we get this thing called a sunspot. And then when we see that there's a massive amount of entanglement of these lines, sometimes we actually get more than a sunspot. We might get a sunspot with a flare. And this is the thing. Everything on the sun is driven by the fusion reaction. However, the sun has a very powerful magnetosphere, magnetic field. And this magnetic field is what ends up driving the particles that you see on the outside of the sun when you see things happen, like the prominences on the edge. So now you can see the granules on the surface of the sun in the view that he had there for a minute. And it's pretty cool. But I think that when you look at the sun in this view, you don't see the prominences, the gases coming off the edge of the sun. There's another little thing too that are smaller details called spikioles, and they're like little tiny. If you think of it as if you took your lawn and got down on you're really low to the lawn, and so all the grass coming up as you're looking straight across at your lawn, you see all the grass sticking up. That's what spikioles look like. It looks like grass, from the edge. All these little lines sticking up of energy and plasma. And so those spikioles are actually, very important. In granules, when you see those granulation, those little splotches that are on the sun, the very, very tiny markings, like we can see some now. Okay, when you look
I
at
increase the contrast, you can see some of the little
the granules. Yeah, those granules, those are little convection cells, because on the outer surface of the sun, there's convection going on, just a little bit, and then there's radiation going on deep inside the sun, and that radiative energy comes out, and then we get a convective mixing of the gas and plasma at the surface of the sun.
Right.
So it's pretty cool, and I like how the sun works. Now, when I was getting my degree in astronomy, one of the things I had to do, and I think I might have told you this, Keith, we had to learn how a star works. And from the core generation energy processes all the way to the convection shells on the outside of the star, we had to build a star on the computer. In other words, from the center of the star all the way to the outside, we had to build a star with all the proper equations, all the proper energy transformations, everything. Mm-hmm. And so by doing that, we actually could understand what's really going on in the star. And then you realize how easy it would be for a photon to get waylaid, for a long time, inside the sun before it got out, and it's really cool. And so when you look at a star, this looks boring to a lot of people. That's just a stupid disk. You have no idea what you're saying, because this stupid disk is actually a sphere, and this stupid sphere is actually a mega powerhouse, and it's one of the smaller ones in the universe. You feel the heat on your face. Think about that. You're feeling radiation from 93 million miles away coming through our atmosphere, hit you in the face. You feel instant warmth. The concept of star, the concept of star and what star means, is absolutely incredible when you take it for what it is. How did this happen? Well, it's a natural consequence of hydrogen gas collecting and forming a condensation point, at some point, and then that mutual gravity pulling more gas in. The gas in the center will eventually heat up and get very hot from the weight of the overlying gases that are pressing down from the gravitational forces pulling in. Eventually, you reach the millions of degrees required for fusion to occur, and the star winks on, and it's an instant thing. It's like, and then off it goes, and it goes on for that's right. It goes on for billions of years until someone comes along and pokes a hole in it and goes, and it's like falls off the side of the universe, and that's the end of it. Because the universe, is flat.
Yeah, obviously.
Oh dang! Sirius is a really nice star. Sirius is cool. I believe it's like 8 or 9 light years away, right? And I like Sirius has a companion. And there's a mystery as to how the ancient people knew that Sirius had a companion, and when didn't have technology at all to see it. And the possibility, maybe, that we don't understand science good enough to know that companion star to Sirius may actually have been an actual star, full-size star, before it actually shrunk down to a white dwarf size or something.
You know what? We were talking about that the other night. Just something you touched on a little bit. Can you imagine what it was like, say, 1,000 years ago, or even 500 years ago, to be able to walk outside at night and literally see the full view of the Milky Way?
I still get that feeling when I walk out in Arizona. I go outside.
But even in Arizona today is nothing compared to what it was back then. Because you do have reflected light,
Yeah.
You're glowing. I mean, yes, you're going to have dark spots, obviously, in Arizona and whatnot. But just imagine, 1,000 years ago, where the only light you're really getting is from fire or whatnot. Just imagine being able to walk outside and literally, without any eye adjustments or anything at nighttime, boom, you have the Milky Way right above you.
Yeah, and 1,000 years ago, you had all this mythology encumbering you to make you not really even think about what that really was.
Right.
But you're right. And the other thing is, the other thing that we always had is something else. Now, you know how we have there's upper air glows that are natural in our atmosphere, and one's called actually sky glow. And in the imagery from the space station, the ISS, you actually can see this greenish and yellow glow on the night side of the Earth. Not on the day side, but on the night side of the Earth. You actually see a greenish yellow glow in the nighttime photos. And you have to say, well, what is that? That's called sky glow. Because what happens is the nitrogen atoms in the atmosphere during the day are absorbing this energy from the sun, along with the oxygen atoms. And then at night, they slowly release it back in the form of photons. And they give off these spontaneous photons. And so you actually get a glow in the night sky. So we're always looking through sky glow when we're at night in the best parts. So one of the photos I have as a background on my homepage here, my desktop actually, is a photo of the Milky Way taken from the cupola on the space station. And you immediately notice something very odd. And that is that there is no missing star. They're all there. And you say, wow, even through the glass windows of the cupola on the ISS, you can see the complete Milky Way in all its glory with every single detail. It's just a matter of getting the right time exposure. Now, here's the thing. The station's moving 17,500 miles an hour. Okay? But it's not flipping around. It's not changing its rotational angle, except it stays basically parallel to the ground as it goes around the Earth. Okay? And that's just because of the balancing of forces in the orbit. Now, as it does that, you're allowed to take an exposure of a certain amount of time before the exposure will be ruined by the station slowly tipping as you start to move around the Earth. Okay? So they take these little exposures. If they had a Sony A7S II up there, oh my God, they could just do some unbelievable work. Yeah. So I think maybe what I'll do is I'll call them and say, hey, do you mind sending me up? I just want to take a few pictures.
We're going to UPS you one out to the studio where the ISS is, and if you could please use this A7S.
I would love to do that. In fact, I would send them mine if they said, yeah, we'll send it up. Don't put a lens on it. We already have lenses up there.
Time it just right and send it up with a helium balloon. Like, hey, you just got to reach your hand out the window and grab it.
That'd be so funny.
Yeah, right. Oh,
hey, one last thing about the Van Allen radiation belts we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
When we talked about them, we talked about the inner radiation belt, right? And as far as that third radiation belt that you mentioned earlier, someone mentioned, that's actually called and this is something I forgot to mention, it's a transient belt. It does appear from time to time at times of high solar activity. There is a third one that does appear, and it goes away. And so basically there's two. But there can be a third one if there's a lot of energy. Now, that inner radiation belt, the one closest to the planet, actually has an area that gets kind of low, so that the International Space Station, again, in times of certain solar activity, could actually pass through the radiation belts. And so what they do is they have a shielded space within the ISS where the astronauts go. And so during those times, they go in there and they stay for about 4 minutes or 6 minutes and maybe 8. I don't know the size of the zone. And then they can come out. Otherwise, they're going to get a dose of these charged particles. See? So we've been in space for many, many years, and we've been surviving. No one's come back with deadly cancers. No one's been killed in space because of a solar flare. I think we have it down now. I think we understand what can happen if we don't pay attention. Don't open the door.
Do not put screen doors on the ISS.
Or submarines.
Yep.
That's right.
I think we got it down pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. What are we doing? We're approaching 5 o'clock. Yeah, I think we're going to end.
Yeah, you've been saying that for an hour.
I know.
Okay,
I was going to end last time, but then the sun came back out. So at least we got like a good 45 minutes of the sun back in when it cleared.
Yeah, the sun came in and said, "Ha ha, I'm back."
Absolutely. So yeah, but thanks for coming on and hanging out with me, Mark. Gave us something to do on this Sunday afternoon after doing yard work all morning.
Yeah, and I got to bed at 3 a.m. because I did my stream last night, and then I came in and started processing some photos. And realized, oh, it's 3 a.m.
I'll tell you what, I did it right last night. I got home from Maryland, and I went right to sleep. And then got up at midnight. And then we did a stream from like 1 to 5 a.m., I believe it was. And then conked it off. But man, yeah, what a gorgeous dude. If you didn't see the video from last night, go towards the last hour or two, and you will see the moon in all its glory. Really clear. Clavius, and we had Aristarchus, and just a whole bunch of craters running really clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to let this stream actually just play out until 5 o'clock, but I'm gonna take us off.
All right.
And let them enjoy some nice tunes, some copyright free, copyright free tunes
without me jabbering on.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, thanks a lot. I had a good time talking with you.
Yep, and once again, if you guys haven't, jump on over to Mark's channel and subscribe over there if you want to go on a nice sky tour. He will be streaming tonight around 9 p.m., you believe?
9:30 after I do the Commander Cobra show on KGRA. Going on with him at 7. Don't know how long it goes. I think it goes till 9. And so from 7 to 9, I'll be doing that on KGRA, and then I'll stream from 9:30 on. And I believe Amanda will be with me. She's going to be moderating for me. So that'd be pretty cool. And then
I might jump over there and join you sometime after 10.
More than welcome to come.
I think I might.
Yeah, we'll bring you on. You can talk. You can sit there and quiz me, try to trip me up if you want. You know, go right ahead. I'm not afraid of knowledge.
Nah, yeah, I know that. I don't know how your head holds so much knowledge. It just baffles me sometimes.
It's the freaking size of a hot air balloon right here, and every time I move, it bumps into the ceiling. It's crazy. I'm kidding, obviously. It's not the size of a hot air balloon. It's the size of a freaking weather balloon. So it's, you know.
All right, guys, so that's it from myself and Mark. Mark, I'll talk to you off air anyway.
All right.
And, yeah, guys, enjoy the rest of the stream. Once again, I'll let it go to about 5 o'clock, and then we'll cut it off. So everybody take care and have a good one, if you know what I mean.
See you guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.